3 bone-chilling combat secrets soldiers never told about Iraq. Shocking truth revealed. The air was heavy with whispers, the kind that gnawed at the back of your mind. Were they true? 3 secrets, buried under layers of fear and camaraderie, that soldiers kept locked away like hidden grenades waiting to explode. Iraq wasn't just a war zone, it was a Pandora's box of horror, where ghost stories drifted through the dusty, sun-scorched streets. The eerie cries that echoed at night weren't just the wind, they had a voice, an otherworldly quality that made the hair stand up on the back of your neck. Soldiers didn't just face enemy fire, they wrestled with shadows that loomed larger than life. Though the scent of burnt rubber filled their lungs, it was the stench of fear that paralyzed them. Rumors swirled about an ancient curse haunting the soldiers, an invisible foe that turned men into shadows of themselves. Some veterans swore that they could see their past as if it unfolded right before their eyes in blood-soaked visions. One soldier, trembling, recounted the tale of a battalion that crossed paths with a derelict building turned mausoleum, where the walls whispered secrets of the fallen. He spoke of eerie silhouettes that danced at the corner of his vision, figures that slipped away whenever he turned to look closely. As darkness fell over the battlefield, the strange occurrences heightened. Suddenly, vehicles would stall, and strange figures would appear only to vanish into thin air, just as quickly as they came. Some said they were the ghostly remnants of soldiers long gone, others claimed they were premonitions of doom. Every heartbeat felt amplified in the silence, every rustle of the wind sent chills down spines like icy tendrils wrapping around the soul. But just when the tension was at its peak, those moments where you hold your breath, teetering on the edge of fear, came a whisper. A simple, powerful truth: some secrets were not meant to be kept. And as tensions boiled, one soldier was left with a decision that could spell life or death. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. Now, with hearts racing and secrets begging to be told, what will happen when the soldiers confront the haunting truths they desperately tried to bury? A thundering heartbeat echoes in the silence, setting the stage for the revelation that might bring unimaginable consequences. Would they emerge victorious, or would they be devoured by their own haunted past? The answers awaited in the darkness, just beyond reach. The night was thick with dread, an almost palpable weight that wrapped around the soldiers like a thick blanket. Whispers floated among the ranks, a sharp shiver creeping down their spines. They understood, the unspoken rule was to keep their heads low and their voices lower. But fear has a way of sneaking out, doesn't it? A secret shared could be the difference between sanity and madness. Tommy, a fresh-faced young recruit, felt his heart threaten to burst out of his chest as he listened to the elder soldiers recount their tales. The building they stumbled upon, the mausoleum, was no ordinary place. It was said to be a grave holding those whose souls weren't at rest, men who haunted the living until justice was served. But what did that mean? What kind of justice? Was it even real, or just a creation of their minds, twisted by the horrors of war? A trembling light flickered from a nearby lamp, casting haunting shadows on the sturdy canvas of the tent. The flickering drew his eyes like a moth to a flame. "Tommy! You with us?" barked Sergeant Wilkins, his voice harsh against the fragile atmosphere. The others chuckled, easing the tension, but Tommy felt like he was teetering on the edge of a black abyss. It was only him that day, the rookie who dared to ask questions, the rookie who dared to listen too closely. "What's it like in there?" Tommy finally blurted out, nearly choking on the last word. The air grew heavier still. Wilkins shot him a dark look. "You want to know what it's like? You want to come back, kid? It messes with your head. Able-bodied men have left and not returned, not all from the enemy." "No, not all," another soldier chimed in, visibly shaken. Some come back, but they're never the same. Just shadows, walking around, mumbling to themselves about things. Tommy felt the sweat bead on his forehead. They were losing it. Yet something inside him compelled him to press on. It wasn't bravery, it was a primal urge to uncover the truth. But what did you see? As the words left his mouth, a sudden blast of wind rattled the tent like a horrific creature trying to break free. The soldiers flinched, their eyes darting in panic. Just stories, Tommy, Wilkins grumbled, but the words came out as a mumble. Nothing you want to hear. But the whispering wind had already breached their walls of fear. We should do it. Came another soldier's bold voice, snapping the group's uncertain gaze. Tonight, let us go to the mausoleum. One look, one night, and we'll lay the ghosts to rest. If they're real, let us face them. Skeptical murmurs filled the room, but something electric flickered in the air. Tommy felt the challenge gnaw at him. Fear built walls, but curiosity pushed men to climb them. What if we don't come back? One soldier questioned, eyes wide with fear. Then it's a chance I'm willing to take, Tommy exclaimed, adrenaline coursing through his veins, drowning his skepticism. Let us uncover the truth. As they exchanged hesitant glances, the urgency thickened like smoke. The clock ticked by, amplifying the tension. Around them, the night grew darker, the shadows lengthening, the whispers of their past echoing louder until they could almost hear their names being called. Tommy's heart raced as he sensed the weight of the decision pressing down on him. They stood on the brink of crossing an unseen line. All right, Wilkins finally said, voice low and grave. But once we step foot in that mausoleum, there's no turning back, and just as the last word left his lips, the ground trembled beneath their feet, and the whispers transformed into an anguished roar. Was it the ghosts? Or the enemies they couldn't see? The truth awaited them, and it was relentless. But could they confront the secrets that lay buried, or would they be swallowed whole by the darkness? They had set their path now, and a tangled web of eerie choices loomed over them. The haunting silence seemed to scream louder, urging them to make their choice. But one thing was certain: the night was far from over, and what awaited them inside that mausoleum would challenge everything they thought. They knew, would they unveil the dark secrets, or just awaken something far worse? The night was alive with tension, and as they stepped out of the tent, the air felt charged like the calm before a storm. Tommy clutched his flashlight, trying to steady the trembling in his hands. The darkness ahead was thick, suffocating. Each step felt like a choice, a dance with fate. Stay close, Wilkins barked, leading the way. Tommy followed, his heart pounding in sync with the crunch of gravel underfoot. Each soldier behind him wore an expression of mixed apprehension and defiance. They had pledged to face the unknown, but camaraderie couldn't erase the fear etched on their faces. As they approached the mausoleum, the structure loomed ominously against the starless sky, like a predator lying in wait. Each crack in the stone seemed to pulse with stories, echoes of lost soldiers, of whispered regrets, of restless spirits roaming through forgotten memories. Tommy's pulse quickened, the thrill of curiosity slamming against the wall of dread building in his gut. I've got a bad feeling about this. One of the soldiers, Jake, voiced what everyone was thinking. He shot a wary glance at the others. We may end up just like them, trapped in a nightmare. No backing out now, Wilkins replied, determination lacing his tone. We need to know. They gathered in front of the heavy stone door, cold and forbidding, covered with layers of grime and age. With a deep breath, Wilkins pushed against it. The door creaked open with a groaning protest, revealing an interior cloaked in darkness. A chill ran through Tommy as he stepped inside. The air was thick, a cloying mixture of damp earth and something rotten, clinging to the back of his throat. Turn on your lights, Wilkins commanded, his voice steadier than Tommy felt. Bright beams cut through the darkness, illuminating the inner chamber's lines of stone coffins, hollow and barren, stacked like forgotten laundry. Dust motes danced like restless spirits in the artificial light. Whispers seemed to flutter in the corners, brushing up against their ears, taunting them. What are those things?" Tommy stammered, pointing at the symbols etched into the walls. They looked ancient, almost alive, twisting and curling as if trying to escape. He felt the weight of their watchful gaze. "Looks like some kind of religious iconography," said another soldier, squinting closer. "But there is something off about it, like the words are cursed." "Cursed?" Tommy echoed nervously. "Who would even?" A loud thud interrupted him, echoing deeper into the chambers. The soldiers froze, eyes wide, hearts hammering in their chests. They exchanged glances, bracing against the unshakable instinct to flee. "What was that?" Jake whispered, his voice shaking. "Maybe it's just the wind," Wilkins said, but everyone instinctively knew that wasn't right. The outside air had abandoned them completely, leaving only the stillness that screamed. "Let's check it out," Tommy suggested, the stupid bravado of youth surging within him. The words were out before he could reel them back. A lump formed in his throat. "No." Another soldier, Marcus, hissed. "We need to leave now." This was a mistake. But it was too late for second thoughts. With a pulse of reckless energy, they moved deeper into the mausoleum. Suddenly, darkness folded in around them, swallowing the light. Panic surged as they flicked their flashlights wildly, but the shadows thickened, engulfing them. The temperature dropped, a bone-chilling wave that set their teeth chattering. The whispers turned to cries, echoing through the hallways. "Help us, save us!" Tommy's heart raced as figures began to coalesce in the shadows, their forms flickering like candle flames. Faces twisted in agony, eyes wide with desperation. "Get back! Get back!" Wilkins shouted, but the words devolved into a frantic scream as something charged from the dark. All of them froze, eyes wide, unable to react, the weight of terror giving way to sheer horror. Something was awakening beneath the tomb. Something that wouldn't be silenced. As the chilling wails rose to a crescendo, Tommy realized, the true nightmare was not what they might find, but what they had already unleashed. What were the ghosts of the past demanding, and could they withstand the price of their curiosity? The darkness felt alive, wrapping around them like a shroud. Tommy couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching, lying in wait. The whispering cries tugged at his sanity, slipping through his mind like smoke. "Help us, save us!" The idea of retreat crossed his mind, but every instinct screamed for them to move forward. "What the hell is that?" Jake whispered, his voice barely above a breath. The faces in the shadows twisted grotesquely, and Tommy felt bile rise in his throat. "Push through!" Wilkins shouted, more of a command than a suggestion. He leaned into the beam of light, eyes darting back and forth, searching the corners. "We need to find the source." But the words hung in the air like a bitter echo. Who were they really searching for? The ghosts or themselves? Suddenly, an icy wind gusted through the mausoleum, extinguishing their flashlights. The darkness thickened, pulling them deeper into its embrace, and panic flared within Tommy. "Guys, we need to stick together." It came out harsher than he intended, and for a moment, he felt like a leader trapped in his own nightmare. The air shifted, thickening with the metallic scent of decay as the whispers grew louder, rising like a tide. "They're here," they groaned, the sound rattling Tommy's bones. "They're here for us with their lights out." Each breath felt like a gamble. Fear clung to them, a palpable weight. Wilkins was reaching for his flashlight, scrambling to turn it back on, and Tommy could hear the click, nothing. The dying hopes of illumination were as futile as fighting against the dark. "Run!" Marcus finally shouted, his voice breaking through the shroud of dread, and that one word snapped them into motion. They bolted to where they thought the entrance was, each step clumsy, hands flailing to keep balance. Thud, it sounded like a heavy blow against stone. They skidded to a halt, hearts pounding, straining against the oppressive silence. It came again, louder this time, and tremors rippled through the ground underneath them. There was something behind them. It moved with purpose, like a predator advancing toward prey, and the air thickened with a primal instinct to flee. "No time." Wilkins nudged Tommy, urgency etched onto his face, and they took off once again. But the darkness closed in, and the claustrophobic walls pulsed with a rhythm, a heartbeat of the tomb. The whispers now filled the air like angry bees, stinging their audacity. Face us. Return what is taken. You cannot leave. Fingers of cold brushed against Tommy's neck, and he stumbled, nearly falling. This isn't real. He shouted, desperation creeping in. We need to get out. This way. With one last push, they slammed into a wall that should have been the exit. But it opened beneath their pounding fists like a trapdoor, spilling them through into another chamber, more horrible than before. The room was alive with pulsating shadows, walls writhing and shifting. The coffins they had seen earlier lay cracked open, and he could hear a low moaning rise from their depths, a sound that would haunt him for years. Tommy! Jake screamed, eyes wide in horror. We need to go. But the path forward became a blurred nightmare, echoing cries and grasping hands reached from deep within the shadows. Faces twisted in anguish rushed at him, crying, pleading. Help us. Breathless, Tommy turned and faced his friends, shock written across their faces. What do they want? I don't know. Wilkins fell to his knees, and Tommy felt the weight of their collective dread crashing down. But we can't just leave them. They need us. There was a moment of frozen silence, each of them caught between the choice of saving themselves or trying to answer the calls of the past. The walls seemed to shake with a dark anticipation, waiting for their answer, but before decisions could be made, the shadows rippled and began to swirl inward, forming a vortex of darkness. It pulled them with a force they couldn't comprehend, and Tommy realized with dawning horror that they were being dragged back into the depths from which they emerged. Fight it! Marcus yelled, gripping a nearby tombstone to stabilize himself. Don't let it take you. And with that, everything descended into chaos as the whispers crescendoed into a blood-curdling scream. Tommy could only hold on to his sanity as a renewed wave of terror surged within him. Now, they were left with a choice that meant life or death. Would they embrace the darkness and find the truth, or lose themselves forever? The air siphoned around them, and Tommy knew that answer was coming fast. The pull of the shadows was fierce, a black hole snatching at their very souls. Tommy felt his heart slam against his ribcage, each beat synchronized with the panic that roiled within him. He could see it, a swirling mass of darkness, tendrils reaching out like claws, aiming for them with inevitable hunger. Grip something! Wilkins shouted, his voice a mingling of fear and command. Tommy lunged for anything solid, his fingers wrapping around an old sarcophagus, its surface cold and slick beneath his grasp. Jake and Marcus mirrored his panic, each of them fighting against the tug of the abyss threatening to swallow them whole, but the whispers grew louder. It was as if the shadows fed off their fear. Join us, stay with us. The voices were seductive, a siren call made from despair. Just when he thought they might break free, the energy shifted, spiraling around them with a palpable force, pushing and pulling as if the very air was alive. Now! Tommy cried, pulling with all his might. Together, they formed a chain, each one anchoring to the next. Their fear morphed into a singular purpose. We need to get to that doorway. He pointed through the chaos, spotting a faint glimmer at the far end of the chamber, the only hint of escape. The shadows writhed angrily, angry hands reaching for them, grasping at their limbs with icy fingers. It felt personal. They were being hunted. Run! Marcus roared, a surge of adrenaline igniting him. The group tore through the mist, the darkness clawing at their backs. Tommy could feel the haunting eyes of the lost souls watching, waiting for their moment to feast. We're almost there. With every step, the air grew heavier, pressing against them with crushing intensity. What if we can't break through? Jake gasped, looking over his shoulder as the shadows lunged, snapping dangerously close. It doesn't matter. We don't have a choice. Tommy yelled, adrenaline powering him forward. Sweat dripped down his brow, blending with the salt of unbidden tears. The doorway loomed closer now, a portal of uncertain salvation. As they approached, the air crackled with energy, electric and alive. With one final push, they hurled themselves forward, crashing through the threshold just as the darkness shrieked in betrayal behind them. They landed on cold stone, rolling awkwardly into the new space. On their hands and knees, they gasped for breath, but the reprieve was short-lived. The chamber around them was dim but vast, extending beyond their sight. Massive stone pillars stretched into the darkness, creating a labyrinthine space filled with the stillness that crawled across their skin. "What is this place?" Marcus whispered, his voice echoing back from the towering walls. Shadows danced along the edges, teasing at the corners of their vision, but the oppressive grip of fear had eased slightly. I don't know," Tommy replied, feeling the weight of uncertainty settle over them like a thick fog. "But we can't stay here. We need to keep moving." Just then, the ground shook violently. A low rumble echoed through the chamber, a menacing growl coming from deep below. Dust drifted from above, settling onto their shoulders like the ashes of the damned. "Do you feel that?" Jake said, eyes wide, terror pooling within them. "Something's coming." The chamber's darkness thickened once more. "We have to go," shouted Wilkins, panic dousing the last remnants of reason. They scrambled to their feet, the urgency driving them forward into the unknown. As they moved deeper into the chamber, they saw etchings carved into the stone walls, symbols and faces twisted in agony. The whispers returned, louder now, swirling around them like a storm. "You're trapped, you can't escape, they cannot know." Tommy's heart dropped at the realization. This was not just another part of the mausoleum. It was a prison, a place where secrets of the past were buried deep. "We need to know what happened here, what they want from us," he said, breathless, but the ground trembled again, more violently this time, fractures splintering through the stone. In that moment of chaos, Tommy locked eyes with his friends, understanding the stakes. They were more than lost souls now, they were intertwined with whatever fate awaited them in this cursed place, and just as a twisted figure emerged from the shadows, the realization hit him like a punch to the gut. "We'll never leave unless they let us." Fear coiled tightly around them, and as the figure advanced, Tommy knew one thing without doubt: the true horror was just beginning. What secrets lay in wait, and would they dare to uncover them, or would darkness claim them, too? The figure stepped into the dim light, revealing a face that twisted in agony, eyes sunken and void of life. It seemed less human, more a reflection of pain itself, scorched by an unseen flame, ethereal and grotesque. Tommy stumbled backward, desperate to shield his friends from the advance of whatever monstrosity had emerged from the shadows. "Stay together," he commanded, his voice shaky but firm. Their formation could falter, but they couldn't allow this thing to divide them. With bated breath, they huddled, gripping one another's shoulders like lifelines. Suddenly, the whispers escalated to a deafening cacophony, echoing off the stone walls. "You are not the first, you will not be the last." The words crawled over their skin, igniting a primal fear that wrapped around their throats. Tommy's chest tightened, and he felt his earlier bravery slip away like sand through fingers. "And maybe we can reason with it." Jake's voice quivered, though it felt like more of a desperate wish than any real plan. Wilkins shook his head, the glimmer of hope extinguished. Before they could strategize, the dark figure lunged. Its clawed hands reached for them, grasping the air with a hunger that suggested it hadn't fed in decades. Reacting instinctively, Tommy pushed against his friends, propelling them away from the figure's grasp. He would not let them go down without a fight. "Run!" Wilkins yelled, his words jolting them into action. They sprinted deeper into the chamber, boots pounding against the cold stone, heartbeats synchronized in terror. "Where are we going?" Marcus shouted, panic coloring his voice. The air vibrated with dread, the shadows racing behind them like wolves on the hunt. "Forward. Just keep moving." Tommy felt the bitter taste of fear at the back of his throat. Their only choice was to navigate this labyrinth built on despair. As they dashed between massive pillars, their breaths came in ragged gasps. Behind them, the growl grew louder, like a beast of legend sharpening its claws. Every now and then, they risked a glance over their shoulders, catching sight of otherworldly figures, some whispering, some moaning, a few reaching out as if yearning to join the living once more. Suddenly, the ground shifted beneath their feet. Tommy stumbled, but Marcus caught him just in time. They gritted their teeth against the rumbling chaos. Yet just when the shaking stopped, so did the whispers. They vanished as if swallowed by the void. A heavy silence settled, thick and oppressive. Jake looked around, unease etched in his features. What just happened? I don't think that was the monster, Tommy said, catching his breath. I think it was worse. Wilkins glanced upwards, where more symbols adorned the ceiling, their meanings obscured but ominous. It's like they're alive, he said, staring wide-eyed. It's a warning. No. No, no, no. Tommy felt something cold curl in his stomach. We have to keep looking for an exit, something that can lead us out of here. But another tremor hit. This time, the walls shifted, and a fissure opened with terrifying speed, wide enough to swallow them whole. As the ground cracked, they had to leap aside to avoid the gaping maw. Tommy. What do we do? Jake's voice was nearly a scream now, fear flooding every word. I don't know. Panic clawed at him. They were running out of time, out of options. The very chamber seemed alive, bending to an unseen will. Just as they gathered their bearings, a piercing wail erupted from the shadows, an anguished plea that echoed like a death knell. Let us look for a staircase or something, Marcus urged, casting desperate glances left and right. They scrambled across uneven stone, suddenly aware that the ground beneath them could give way at any moment. Just then, a blinding light pierced the depths of the chamber, illuminating the wall where the whispers once crept. A doorway, a true escape, or another trap? Over there! Tommy shouted, pointing towards the light slashing through the dark. But as they neared the glimmer, a hand shot out, gripping Marcus's ankle and yanking him into the past. No! Marcus! Tommy lunged, but the shadows swallowed Marcus's scream. Tommy's chest tightened anew. The door was mere feet away, but they had lost one of their own. Would they risk their lives for an escape? Or could the darkness claim them all? Go! Now! Wilkins screamed, urgency spurring them onward, the decision echoing cruelly in the air. Tommy hesitated only a second longer. They had already come too far. We keep going. Into the unknown they charged, hearts pounding against fate, every step a question that hung in the blackness. The shadows pressed in closer, whispering secrets he didn't want to hear. What awaited them on the other side? Would they find Marcus, or merely face the echoes of their own fears? As the door loomed ahead, the pressure rose, and so did their desperation. They burst through amid a pulse of light, but just as quickly, they felt the familiar tug of shadow looming just behind. The choice had been made, but at what cost? The moment they burst through the door, Tommy's senses screamed at him. The air felt different, charged with energy and rich with an unfamiliar scent, sharp like burnt metal. He stumbled into a cavernous room, its vaulted ceiling obscured by swirling darkness that felt as if it were alive, breathing, waiting. Where are we? Jake gasped, swinging his head around, clutching at Tommy's sleeve. The pulse of light had faded, leaving them cloaked in shadow once more, and the stark contrast made every detail appear more menacing. Stone walls dripped with moisture, and ancient carvings flickered in and out of view as if illuminated by a flickering flame. We need to find Marcus, Wilkins urged, though his voice was barely above a whisper, thick with dread. The words hung in the stale air, pregnant with a sense of foreboding. Tommy nodded, though an uneasy feeling pooled in his stomach. We have to keep moving. He could still be close. As they ventured further, the echoes of the previous chamber seemed to follow them, distortions of reality creeping back into the edges of their minds. Each step they took reverberated with the sound of scrapes and whispers. Was it their imagination, or was the darkness actually breathing around them? Suddenly, a low growl echoed through the room, an omnipresent sound that made every hair on Tommy's neck stand upright. What was that? Jake's eyes widened, darting around as his breath sharpened in short spurts. I don't know, Tommy replied, swallowing hard. But we can't stop. They pressed on together, their feet crunching on loose gravel. The room split into several paths, shadows danced along the walls, as if the very darkness was alive and celebrating their confusion. Pick one. Wilkins exclaimed, his voice tinged with panic. Tommy scanned each corridor. Each option felt like an invitation to despair. Just as he was about to make a choice, the growl erupted again, cutting through the silence. This time, it was accompanied by a series of faint, desperate screams that chilled them to the core. Marcus! Tommy shouted, his heart pounding as the sound of hope twisted and turned like smoke in the air. He took off toward the deepest corridor, ignoring the rest. The others hesitated for a moment but quickly followed, fueled by the slim chance they could still reach their friend, but with every step, they felt the walls close in around them, pressing down with an unbearable weight. The air thickened, almost suffocating, and the shadows seemed to stretch longer, swirling as if alive. Then, it struck an eerie sense of déjà vu washed over them. What if this leads us in circles? Jake's voice cracked. What if we're walking right into a trap? No, Tommy insisted, determination rising within him to keep them moving forward. We have to trust our instincts. Suddenly, a blinding light flared at the end of the corridor. It shifted like a living creature, wiggling and pulsating, beckoning them toward it. With renewed hope, Tommy quickened his pace. As they approached the source, a shocking scene unfolded. Before them stood a grand hall, and trapped within its pulse of light was a familiar figure, a silhouette struggling against the force of darkness surrounding it. Marcus! Wilkins yelled, rushing toward him. Wait! Tommy shouted, sensing something off. The light was bright, yet it felt wrong, tinged with a sense of malice. It could be a trick. But it was too late. Wilkins reached Marcus, who appeared to be fighting against a solid wall of shadows. In a desperate surge, he lunged forward, arms outstretched. Just as Tommy tried to halt him, darkness erupted from the walls, leaping out like tentacles to ensnare Wilkins, dragging him into the void with a terrified scream. Wilkins! Tommy screamed, voice hoarse with horror. Panic surged through the remaining friends as they stood at the precipice of the holographic light, a choice once again. Behind them, the growling became louder, a cacophony of roars and cries melding together, drowning out their thoughts. What do we do? Jake whimpered, grasping Tommy's arm tightly. Go forward. We have to save him. I can't leave him behind. But as Tommy edged closer to the light, doubt gnawed at him. Was it a way out, or merely a gateway to something worse? Just as they stood weighing their fate, the corridor trembled, and a chilling laughter echoed through the hall, low, mocking, as if the very darkness was aware of their deepest fears. We have to decide now. Tommy urged, pushing his pulses of anxiety aside. The shadows were closing in fast. Was the light an exit or a harbinger of doom? In that moment, with shadows creeping up their heels, they chose. But as they took that first desperate step, the light dimmed, and they realized finding Marcus might cost them more than they ever imagined. What could come next in a place where sanity wept and darkness laughed? The light flickered, pulsing like a dying heartbeat, and Tommy's mind raced. The edge of the corridor felt like a vast chasm opening beneath him. Shadows writhed, creeping closer, their tendrils searching for warmth, for fear. He clenched Jake's arm, a silent pact to face whatever lay ahead together. On three, Tommy murmured, heart pounding like a war drum. 1, 2, 3. They charged forward, feet pounding against the cold stone, and for a brief second, it seemed they were free, lost in a wave of brilliant light. But just as quickly, it shattered, the darkness infusing everything once more. The heaviness of despair pressed against them. Marcus's silhouette flickered within the walls of light, and the anguished screams echoed fiercely in Tommy's ears. Hold on, Marcus. We're coming. Marcus's form wriggled against the shadows, his face a mask of terror. In that fleeting moment, Tommy caught a glimpse of his friend's eyes, wide with horror. It was a stark reminder that the longer they waited, the more perilous the situation became. Desperation drove them. They grasped hands and dove deep into the shimmering pool of light. The world twisted around them, brightness battling the encroaching dark. Tommy felt the shadows claw at his back, chilling him to the bone. He fought to push forward through the brilliance. "We won't leave you, Marcus. Keep going. Don't stop." Marcus's voice burst through the maelstrom, thick with urgency. But as they pushed further, the light dimmed, and reality warped. The ground trembled beneath them. Suddenly, they were tumbling into an abyss where the light frayed at the seams. Tommy landed hard, breath stolen for a moment. He scrambled to his feet, his eyes adjusting to a dull gloom. The vast hall they had entered stretched impossibly wide and seemed filled with shifting shapes in the dark. Jake was beside him, eyes wide, scanning their new surroundings. "Where are we?" Jake asked, trembling. Tommy's voice faltered. Shadows swirled, whispering incoherent thoughts, brushing against his skin like icy fingers. "I don't know." Just before Tommy could finish, another scream cut through the air, unmistakably Marcus's voice. The sound bound around them, twisting into a painful melody of despair and urgency. Tommy felt his heart fracture. "Follow me." He ignited instinct, chasing the scream echoing through the cavern. They navigated past swaying shadows, careful not to touch them, terrified of what they might become. Suddenly, an unsettling laugh rang out, bouncing off the walls with a life of its own. "Foolish children." It taunted, a sound too familiar yet rotting away at his sanity. "You think you can steal them back? You have already lost so much." Tommy's breath quickened. The laughter wrapped around him like a noose, squeezing tighter with every echo. "Shut up!" He shouted into the void, desperation clawing at him. He would not let this evil rent his spirit. "We'll find him." As they pressed on, the floor quaked beneath them, sending puffs of dust into the sweltering air. The shadows morphed, growing sharper and darker, twisting into grotesque forms that beckoned and jeered. His grip on Jake tightened. "Whatever happens, we stay together. Now you face the darkness," the voice hissed, demanding. "You offer yourselves in blind loyalty," and for that the voice cut off abruptly, tilting the air into a state of suspense. Suddenly the ground split open beneath them, a chasm yawning wide as they stumbled. Tommy teetered on the edge, his heart pounding so loudly it drowned out all else. "Jake!" He reached out, and they clutched each other, adrenaline pulsing through their veins. But it wasn't enough. The fracture widened, shadows emerging that clawed desperately at their feet. "Get back!" Tommy shouted, eyes darting as he felt himself being pulled toward the abyss. If they fell, there would be no returning from it. With a surge of strength, they pulled back, chanting a silent vow against the encroaching dark. But as they fought to reclaim their foothold, the dark voice returned, sinister and promising. "This is merely the beginning. More shall come and you will lose what you cherish most." A chilling promise, seeping into their core as shadows danced wildly around them, weaving a tapestry of terror. Tommy's hands trembled, the heart of the darkness now an unshakable reality. In that moment, he noticed a flicker of light in the distance. Was it Marcus? Or another mirage intended to lure them deeper? "Let us go," Tommy urged, heart racing, hope reborn but deeply rooted in fear. "This isn't over yet." Together, they pulled themselves away from the edge, hearts pounding, minds racing. But as they advanced, the shadows shifted, unfurling into twisted shapes that came alive in the dim light, creatures of nightmare, clawing their way out from the depths of despair. What awaited them next in this gaping maw of fear? Would they uncover Marcus, or were they running further into the dark? The air thickened, a suffocating weight pressing down on them as Tommy and Jake stumbled toward the flickering light ahead. Shadows writhed, crawling with malicious intent. Every step felt like wading through molasses, the darkness eager to hold them captive. The whispers grew louder, a cacophony of taunts and fears embodied. Tommy's heart clanged in his chest, panic edging his thoughts. "We have to hurry," he gasped, glancing back at the yawning chasm. The shadows flickered like embers of a lost fire, and he couldn't shake the feeling that they were being hunted. "Wait! Look!" Jake pointed toward the light, excitement mingled with dread. As they drew closer, a clearer image emerged. Marcus was there, illuminated by a hazy glow that felt like hope. Tommy's chest flooded with determination. "Marcus," he called, pushing forward, Jake right beside him. But just as they reached the threshold of light, a rush of cold air swept through, almost palpable, a warning shuddering through their bones. The light flickered, revealing Marcus's face twisted in agony. He was bound, arms stretched wide as if suspended in time, the shadows swirling around him like hungry serpents. "Get out!" Marcus screamed, his voice breaking, desperation lacing each word. "Don't fall for it." Tommy skidded to a halt, gnawing realization dawning in his chest. This wasn't their Marcus anymore. Something had changed in him, something dark and twisted. The flickering light pulsed as if mocking their hope. "What do we do?" Jake asked, panic washing over him. "Stay close." Tommy gripped Jake's arm tightly, feeling their connection anchor him to reason. "We'll have to break the spell or whatever this is." "Great," Jake whimpered, staring at Marcus trapped in the throes of shadows. The twisted shapes around them surged forward, a suffocating tide threatening to sweep them away. The dark laughter echoed louder as the walls of the cavern closed in. "Release him!" Tommy shouted defiantly, stepping toward the flickering form of his friend. The shadows hissed at him, growing denser, wrapping around his ankles, trying to pull him down. Marcus's eyes narrowed, still filled with fear yet tinged with a flicker of regret. "No. Don't listen." He had to believe. Tommy took a deep breath, ignoring the cold prickling against his skin. He stepped forward, dragging Jake with him. "We're not leaving you." With every word, a surge of warmth spread through him, radiating into the shadows. The pressure against his chest eased, the darkness recoiling slightly, as if responding to defiance. "You're stronger than this." He yelled, feeling the power of belief rippling through him. The shadows recoiled, wavering at the edges. Tommy drew closer still, grasping for any thread of Marcus's spirit. "You can fight this. Come back to us." But just then, a loud crack echoed through the cavern, splitting the tense air like thunder. The ground shook violently, throwing them off balance. An ungodly roar erupted from the shadows, a primal sound that shook Tommy to his core. "No!" Marcus cried out, his voice a mixture of pain and fury as the darkness surged forward again, rising in a tide that threatened to engulf everything. Tommy's resolve wavered. The shadows moved faster now, growing larger, more monstrous. "Run!" Jake screamed, pulling Tommy back. "We have to get out of here." Tommy hesitated, torn between the glimmer of Marcus and the engulfing shadows becoming more relentless, more ravenous. "We have to find a way," he swallowed hard, fighting against the deep anguish clawing at him. But all Tommy saw was an abyss before them, swirling with shadows and echoes, and the light flickering, fading like hope dimming in the darkness. That chaotic laughter echoed once more, promising despair. "Time is not on your side." A dark force propelled them backward, shoving them further from Marcus and deeper into the darkness. With their backs to the yawning chasm, Tommy felt himself teetering on the brink again. In that moment, he understood. They weren't meant to save Marcus alone, they needed to escape together. He turned to Jake, fear alive in their eyes. "Let us go, now." He grabbed Jake's hand as he steeled himself for whatever lay ahead. Together, they charged toward the last flicker of light, hearts pounding. But the darkness behind them was not just shadows, it was alive, a swirling vortex, whispering promises of doom. Would they manage to outrun the encroaching nightmare? Or would they become lost to the dark forever? The ground trembled beneath their feet as Tommy and Jake bolted toward the faint glimmer ahead. The oppressive darkness clawed at their backs, a hungry beast pursuing its prey. Panic surged like electricity through both of them, but still they pushed on, legs pumping, hearts racing, each desperate step tinged with hope mixed with the dread of failure. "Don't look back!" Tommy shouted, his voice fierce, though it wavered under the weight of fear. "Just keep running." Jake nodded, breathless, but he couldn't help stealing glances over his shoulder, visions of monstrous shadows stretching to engulf them. The fleeting spark of light began to wane, oppressive whispers filling the air with dread. "You cannot escape, you belong to us," but what they sought lay beyond that darkness. A chance for salvation. The light flickered, pulsed, growing brighter as they drew closer, an inviting beacon promising refuge just past the gleaming threshold. They could see shapes moving within, faces swirling amid billowing energy, beckoning them closer. "Almost there," Tommy urged, adrenaline surging with each fierce heartbeat, but the growl of hungry madness reverberated behind them. It was relentless. Then, as if the shadows had ears, a terrifying roar erupted through the tunnel, slamming into them like a wall. It sent a shiver down Tommy's spine, a gut-wrenching reminder of the stakes. "Faster!" he yelled. Their feet flew across the unforgiving ground, sweat drenching their backs, their breaths coming in ragged gasps. A flash sparked in Tommy's mind, a fleeting thought: Marcus. The utter randomness of their journey meant something. They were more than just soldiers, they were brothers, bound by choice and driven by the desperate need to reclaim what had been lost. The shimmering light before them bloomed with a promise. But as they closed the distance, the darkness surged forward, bursting past their defenses, despair flooding their senses. "No. We want to let you take us," Tommy shouted defiantly, channeling every ounce of strength he had into his voice. A warmth flowed through him, igniting an ancient fire. Their path was clearer now. They needed to believe in each other, and in Marcus, who fought against the shadows even now. With a last kick of fury, Tommy lunged forward, crashing into the light. "Together!" he bellowed, yanking Jake by the arm. They burst through the threshold into brightness that engulfed them entirely, the shadows screaming with rage as they were left behind. But before they could catch their breath, a ripple of energy flowed over them like a wave, solidifying into a barrier between the two worlds. There was a moment of stillness, a breath held collectively, and within that pause, they felt the power of their connection. "Where's Marcus?" Jake gasped, glancing around the strange new realm, bathed in an otherworldly light. The chamber radiated warmth and the shadows flickered like dying embers. "What happened?" Tommy took a shaky breath. "We'll find him. He has to be here." They stepped forward, the air thick with anticipation. Each footfall echoed, a testament to their resolve. Suddenly, the shadows congealed into a more coherent form, dark tendrils creeping into their space, though the warmth of light kept them at bay. "Foolish children!" the dark voice hissed, wrapping around them like smoke. "You think you can simply walk away?" Tommy clenched his fists. "We'll never belong to you." "No," the voice murmured, tauntingly, with a darkness that chilled them to the bone. "But you will pay for your foolishness." The tendrils lashed out, but the light wrapped around Tommy and Jake, forming an impenetrable wall. They could feel the echoes of the past, the whispers of lost souls wrapped in anguish. "Marcus! Where are you?" Tommy cried out, desperation clawing at him. The shadows recoiled. "He is lost beneath you, torn between realms. You will not bind him kindly." Without warning, they heard another voice, a familiar cry that cut through the chaos like a lifeline. "Help me, Tommy." "Marcus!" Tommy shouted, his spirit ignited by the sound of his friend's plea. The energy surged within him, amplifying every beat of hope. "Repeat after me," Jake urged, holding his hand tight. "Together. We call him home." Tommy took a deep breath. "We're coming for you, Marcus. Come back to us. You belong with us." The air crackled, whispers swelling into a veritable howl as they united their voices, an unstoppable force reverberating in the shared bond of friendship. The shadows writhed, howling in a frenzy of rage, colliding against their cohesion, but they pressed on, body and soul entwined, the shadows swelled, a whirling storm of rage and sorrow, until a golden glow flared in the center. It illuminated Marcus, a form caught between realms, eyes wide in fear yet filled with unwavering hope. I can't. I don't know how. Focus on us, Marcus. Look at us. Tommy urged, his voice cracking. They didn't have the luxury of time now. The golden light pulsed brighter, responding to their cries for unity, and slowly, like the dawn breaking through the dark abyss, Marcus began to emerge. The shadows hissed in anger. Fight it. Tommy urged. You're stronger than this. Marcus. Reach for us. Jake added, tears glistening in his eyes. With one last push of determination, the shadows shrieked, recoiling from their combined light, and Marcus's hand broke free from the dark. With the strength of their bond fueling him, he surged forward, breaking through the barrier into the safe haven they had created. You made it. Tommy shouted with relief, embracing Marcus, feeling his heart match the pounding of their shared breath, but the shadows howled louder. This is not over. You will dread the consequence of your defiance. Tommy felt the weight of that promise settle in his stomach, but he looked at his friends, at Marcus and Jake, and knew they could face it together. Whatever comes next, Marcus said, voice steadier, we'll take it as one. Together, they stepped forward into an unknown world. The darkness behind them faded away, becoming less menacing as they moved further into the light. They would confront whatever truths lay ahead, armed with the power of their bond, ready to unveil the next chapter of their journey. The shadows might haunt them still, but they would never face them alone. Listen up. Now is the perfect moment to subscribe immediately to the channel, so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Smash that like button now to fuel the algorithm and keep the stories coming, and don't forget to flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this electrifying conclusion. And if you know friends who need to see this epic finale, instantly share this video with at least 5 of them. Your support means the world. You need to show your strength for this community. Don't wait even one more second.